Dad, tell me about your first trapping experience.
I grew up, Dad always worked for the Hudson Bay Company in the wintertime. He trapped. And he was at that for a good many years, I guess, before we got old enough to take notice what he was doing. And it was always something we wanted to do, go and see his trap line. We always wanted to go and see his trap line because around town we always had our own little trap lines where we caught a few weasels and squirrels, stuff like that. So he always promised that someday he would take us over. But as we got older, Dad went to work permanent with the Hudson Bay Company, and he didn't really have the time to go to Sandy Cove, Trout Cove anymore. But when he retired, he promised he would take myself and Ralph over to show us his trap line, at least a part of it anyway. So the time come for us to go, and Dad retired. I think Ralph and I were both in our early 20s, and Dad was getting up in his 60s. So we planned a trip just after Christmas. So the day come, we went over across, a bit stormy, but we made it. We got across, we had set up our tents and get everything ready for the night, wood, water, brush the tent in. And then Ralph and I were sort of excited about going in the country, walking in. But he said, tomorrow we have to make sure everything else is done first. And we wondered what had to be done. But I guess his way, we had to do all the little things, make sure there was wood and water left at the tent, and everything else was looked after before we could go. So all our gear had to be checked out. So anyway, the next day after that, he said we were going. And we thought, now, we only have to go about 2 miles or so inland to the first pond. He said as far as we were going. But he warned us it could be a bit bad walking. But being young, we said, we're good for it. So the next morning he had us up around 4:30, 5 o'clock. He said we got to be ready to start walking by 6. So had our breakfast and away we go. I think it was just a little after 6 we left. Couldn't see nothing, still dark. And I just had a brand new pair of snowshoes made. He said, Jack, you go ahead. You got the best pair of snowshoes. And then I had to say, okay, how much traps can I take? And I said, I'm good for 2 dozen traps, put them in a pack sack. And that was my first mistake. So the next thing I said, Dad, I don't know the way, and I've never been in here before. He said, you just walk ahead. He said, I'll tell you where to go. And that's how it all started. It just so happened a few days before that we had a big batch of snow, and going ahead, we wasn't gone very long before I found I was sinking right to my knees with my 2 cases of 24 traps on my back, and I was going right to my knees, and walking was hard. And I think it was well afternoon by the time we got into the first pond. And I think that's when I said the first time, I swear to God I would never do this again, walk like this and go and trap it. But anyway, we set a few traps, done a bit of fooling around in there, looking at this and that. Of course, Dad had to check out the pond for beaver hoses and see if there's any caribou sign, although we wasn't allowed to hunt them, but he said it's a good place for caribou. So I guess it was well after 6 by the time we got back to our camp. I can remember getting back to the camp, taking off my snowshoes, crawling to the door, and I think I might have lit the fire. I'm not sure, but that's about as much as I remember until I woke up again around. Dad woke me up around 10 o'clock that night. He said, Jack, get up and have something to eat before you go to bed for the night. I can remember sitting and eating. I don't know what we had to eat, but I know he had something cooked up. And I remember crawling back in the sleeping bag and saying, I'm not doing this. I couldn't care less if I ever seen another trap again after that day. But next morning, woke up around 6, I think probably didn't have my eyes open properly. Where are we going to go today? And Dad said, we'll go up to Trout Cove today. So had our breakfast and we had to go by skidoo, so we went on up Trout Cove. Started in for Trout Cove Pond. Walking was better up that way. So being rough said, no, look, oh man, he's old now. He's going to do a lot of waiting for him all day, I guess. So we took off, and we were doing pretty good, leaving them behind a bit until we come to a place where we didn't know where to go, and they could find the old trapping path going in there. But we made it into the first pond, set a few cat traps, and then Dad, of course, again, he had to get up and look around the pond, see if there's any beaver houses, see if there's any sign of cats, see if there's any sign of martins, all that kind of stuff. And it was getting a bit late again by the time we come out of there. And me and Ralph, supposed to be good for the day, we was beginning to slow down a bit. My God, the old man that evening, he never missed a beat. I think me and Ralph was behind most of the ways back out to the skidoos that evening, but he didn't miss a beat, just a steady swing of the old snowshoes. But since that, since the first day going into Truckle, I've enjoyed it ever since. I still do a bit of trapping, but I don't trap like Dad used to for a living. I just do it now as more or less as a hobby and something to do.